We're finished with the layout files for the time being, so I'm going to close down item_project, and I'm going to close down activity_main, and I'll sit back in the main activity.java for now, and I am also going to open the project pane back up. So, building upon our learning from the last section, let's first take stock of where we are at the moment. We have our recycler view, which is our superpowered list view. We have that in our layout. We have our individual item layout now. So the two things that we need from here, we need to decide what we're going to give the list view, and then we'll need to make an adapter to convert that thing, dish class or string or whatever, into individual items. So of those two things, the thing we need to do first is build out the thing we're going to give our list, which is a list of our projects. So just like in the last section, we're going to make a brand new class, which is going to represent our project. So this is a fantastic opportunity now for us to revisit our learning on classes and objects by making a brand new class from scratch. So we need to go to our Java files. I could use the target button, but I think I'll do it the manual way. So app, source, main. So not our resource folders. I'm going to close these for now, but our Java folder, and then open that. So I'm going to make it next to main activity. So I'm going to right click on the folders above and do a new Java class. And just like the last section where we called it dish, we will call this one with a capital P, project, singular, no S, project, okay? And classes always starting with a capital letter. And then enter. Good, so we have a new class, our project class. Now, quick question. Do you remember from the programming concept on classes, the three fundamental types of thing that make up a class? Have a little think, pause if you need to. Three things that a class has. It has the things that it knows, which is the class variables or properties. It has the things it can do, the methods, and then it also has the constructor, the way to build an object of that type of class. So fields, methods, things it knows, things it can do, state and behavior, okay? And then the constructor. So we're going to start with the things that a project should know about itself, the class variables, the fields. So between the curly braces, make some line breaks. Now, we're going to want to know the name of our project, and that's going to be some text, a string. So that's our first class variable. So let's do type string, and we'll call this just the project name. So string name, and then a semicolon, because we'll set this later. We also want the description of it, so string description, and a semicolon. Now, unlike the dish class, we don't have any kind of price or any numbers at this point with our project, so there'll be no typical integer variables like that. However, unlike the dish class, we are going to have a picture. We're going to have some pictures for each of the projects, and we are going to store it somehow in this class. So we're going to add later on all the images for each individual project into the drawable folder as a resource, and they're all going to have a name, a drawable name. But when we refer to them in Java code, as opposed to our XML code that we have done before, it will be r.drawable. The name of the file. Like this, I'll just do a quick comment. Yeah, so it will look something like that. Very similar to our r.id, you know, when we do find view by ID, or set content view r.layout. Okay? And it's this weird r thing. Later on in the course, we will have a little poke around and see where this r thing is. But we don't actually need to worry about it because Android takes care of it. Any ID that we declare in our XML, any layout file that we create in the layout folder, any drawable file, which is a picture or an image that we import in the resource manager, when we build our project, when we launch it, Android Studio takes care of creating all of these IDs or files in this R place, okay? And storing it into the correct type and the correct name. So why am I telling you all this? Well, the important thing to realize is that when Android Studio takes all these things that were in our resource folder, whether layouts or drawables or IDs, it takes those things and puts them into Java code, gives them a name, and that name, believe it or not, actually converts to some sort of number, an integer. Okay? So it will be some sort of number, an int. It might just look like some random 6, 7, or 8 digit number. Okay? It'll look like something like that. But for every resource, whether layout, drawable, ID, or anything else, any resource, for our drawable, whatever the name of the file is, and that's a type of number. I'm going to delete the comment for now. Don't worry about knowing too much about what this R folder is for now. Later on, I'll show you where this gets auto-generated, but Android developers rarely, if ever, need to go anywhere near that. It's one of those behind-the-scenes things. It's the way that the Java code can locate these resources. Okay? So delete that. So that is all the things our project needs to know about itself. Name, description, and the picture. A resource, integer. Okay? Now, behavior, things it can do. Do we need this project to be able to do anything? Probably not. So we're not really going to have any methods at the moment for our project. But to save time, let's give it a constructor. Let's insist on a specific way that it needs to be built. Let's not have any project with no name or no description. So, to do a constructor, we just simply do the name of the class, project, and then brackets. Name, int, name, new, and view. Okay, so there is. So having just typed all of that, do and then click constructor. And let's see what this gives us. Okay. Choose fields, ignores it in the command. So select it with your mouse and do command / or option / and that will comment out all those lines, which simply means it will put the comment / at each one. So it treats it like a comment, it ignores it in the code. And we can right click and we can scroll down to the word generate, or you can do alt insert or whatever the option is on a Mac. So click the word generate and then click constructor. And let's see what this gives us. Okay. Choose fields to initialize by the constructor. If I just move this, these are our fields. We can actually select these three things and say we want to initialize these. We want these three things to be parameters in our constructor. So let's do exactly that. I'm using shift on my computer, shift and click to select all three, and then press OK, and let's see what happens. And look at that. They've added the word public, which is okay. We'll be covering public and private in this section, don't worry. But even without the word public, it will still work for us. Okay? I'll put it back in for now. So we have a constructor. We have the three variables as parameters. They have the same name as the field, and this.name equals name. Okay? I'm going to put some line breaks after this. That looks pretty good to me. So we've made our project class, and now in main activity we can start to make individual project objects ready to pass. We have our project class now ready to make individual objects from, so now we need to go back to main activity to make our array of projects, our list of projects. So back to main activity. Now in our onCreate method, underneath set content view, we're going to create our array. First of all, let's just make one project object. So it's going to be a variable of type project, so project with capital P, okay? And then let's call this one our getting started project. And let's make this equal to a new project object, just to get practice with how we make individual objects again. So it's new for a new instance of the project class, and then capital P for project, then autocomplete. So we're inside the brackets, and we can see we're getting a prompt for the parameters that this method needs. First is the name, so inverted commas, I'll call this the getting started app, and then a comma after the string. Then the description, so inverted commas again, our very first project, the default single apostrophe, hello world app, exclamation mark. Okay, careful when you do any sort of quoting inside string quotes. If you do inverted commas, it really does confuse Android Studio until we do something special later on. So we'll just do a single quote for now like that for our hello world app. Comma after that string, and then the last thing we need is a resource ID for our picture. So we don't have any pictures at the moment, so for now I'll just put any odd number. I'll put the number 5 for now. Okay, if I scroll to the right, no more error, just a semicolon at the end, and that's done. Okay, so I'm going to scroll from left to right. You can see here, project variable called getting started project equals a new project. It's this point here where we make the new version of that class. And we give it the 3 parameters it needs. But our image ID is just a number for now. We will add the image resources in the next lecture, so for now we'll just put pretend IDs. So if I scroll back to the left, okay, so we know how to make an individual project object and assign it to a variable. If I just make a line break after this, make a few line breaks, do you remember from the previous section how to make an array? Pause the video if you think you do and give it a go yourself. Okay, the answer is we type the type of array, so project, and then square brackets for array. So a project array variable type, and we will call this simply our projects. And we're going to use that array initializer block. So this is equal to, and then do the curly bracket, and then a semicolon. So inside here we can do all of our projects, our new project objects. We don't need to give them individual names like this. Okay, I'm going to make some line breaks in between these curly braces, in between our array initializer block. And to get us started, I'm going to copy this new project. So from the word new, I'm going to click and drag to the end. I'm not going to copy the semicolon, so I'm going to copy that, Control-C, Command-C, and put that inside the initializer block. And then I'm going to do a comma, and then I'm going to do Command-D or Control-D to duplicate that 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to delete the comma from the last item. So that is an array of 5 objects, all with the same properties. So all I need to do now is just change those names to be appropriate for each project. First of all, I'm going to delete the pointless variable we have above here. I'm going to delete this one. So we had the getting starting app. I'll do the titles first. Then we had the, well, for me it was called Vin quote. You can type motivational quote app or whatever you call it. Then it was our BMI calculator. Then it was the challenge to make a converter app of your own. I did an inches converter. And then the last section was the hungry developer. So the hungry developer, or whatever you called your app or your restaurant. Okay. Now for the description, put whatever is meaningful for you for each of these. You might want to put some of the programming concepts you learned, or you might want to put a quick summary of what the app does. I'm going to pause the video and then unpause once I've typed mine out, okay, to save some tutorial time. Okay, so I've done that. So just showing you what I put in case you want to copy it or use it as inspiration for yourself. So for Vin quote, I just put
en fait. Merci pour
Merci,
tout ça.
Pantouflard.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup.
Pantouflard, tu me pantoufles bien. Oh, j'ai envie d'être.
Voilà, pantoufle-moi.
Pantoufle-moi.
Deuxième semaine, je voudrais adresser une réponse
Il va mourir en parlant.
Sophie Binet, qui est la secrétaire générale de la CGT.
Oh putain.
Et dont
le clash.
Je sais quelle est l'importance dans
Clash by
le
Roubinet.
dialogue social français.
Ça fait un
Wow,
peu Bayrou.
le clash de fou.
Écrit que dans ces très grands
il est
mouvements
chiant.
de
Mais qu'est-ce qu'il est
réforme que
chiant.
nous
Mais en
portons
fois
au
deux.
gouvernement,
Oh, je
Mais en fois deux, je t'entends
en force. Et j'ai beaucoup de respect pour les responsables.
Ça veut dire va te faire
syndicaux,
foutre, sale pute.
Et d'ailleurs pour l'ensemble du dialogue social. Je pense que
Et les prolos de merde, vous allez faire ce qu'on vous
de
dit.
la démocratie politique, qui a tout son rôle, la démocratie sociale.
Attends, vous n'avez pas votre
On est
rôle à
d'accord
dire
que-
dans notre république parce que
le-
c'est moi qui décide. De toute façon, c'est moi qui décide et
On est
vous
d'accord
fermez
que c'est
votre gueule.
tellement-
Attends, je le traduis.
Il Vas-y, traduit vas-y. de toute façon.
Mais non, mais juste,
Parfait.
on est d'accord que c'est un tel effort qu'il est en train de rougir au fur et à mesure de la vidéo,
Oui,
là.
de fou. Mais là, il donne tout, là. Là, vraiment.
Mais oui.
Ah
Et
ouais.
son blabla de « Ah, mais moi, je crois. »
Making a simple change to the layout with my own personal motivational quote for software developers. Actually, I'm going to close the project pane to make it easier to read this. Okay. For the BMI calculator, I put a real-life working BMI calculator teaching me programming about this ID for the actual drawable. We want to remove these dummy pretend image IDs, these image numbers, with the actual drawable, the actual image IDs. So we'll need to bring some pictures into Android Studio and then add them to these individual project objects. So I'm just going to go ahead and open the project pane and change this over to our resource manager. So we want to bring these images into here. I've added to the resources for this tutorial 5 pictures, the same ones that I showed at the start of this section, and you are welcome to use those. It's absolutely fine. If you choose to use your own images, which is absolutely fine to do as well, do make sure that the individual size for any given image is ideally less than 200 or 300 kilobytes. If you start using super high resolution pictures and you have a list with many, many items, all that are quite large and quite high resolution, you are going to run into performance issues as you scroll up and down. Later on in the course, we're going to use a very special library, a very special bit of code that we can use that will take care of all these image performance issues. But until we get to that, we want to be using 100 or 200 kilobytes of the most files and ensuring we do that no density thing when we import it. If you use the pictures that I've provided, you should be absolutely fine. Otherwise, if you choose your own, make sure the size and resolution is fairly small. After all, they're only taking up 80 pixels on the phone, so it doesn't need to be high resolution. So I'm going to go over to my desktop now, where I've downloaded the zip file with those pictures. Okay, so I've got the project images zip here. I'm just going to extract this also onto the desktop. Okay, so I have the pictures extracted here, and I'm going to use the drag and drop method to import these. So I'm going to double click, so there's the pictures there. Okay, so I'm here with the File Explorer on top of Android Studio, and I'm going to drag them over one by one. So calculator, qualifier, density, no density. You don't want to run into any upscaling or downscaling issues. So that's the calculator. And actually, I can drag multiple ones at once. So I'll drag 3 more and make sure each of them has the no density qualifier. Okay. And then import. And I intentionally didn't add the last one just to show you the other way you can do it, which is manually with the plus symbol, import drawables, and then locating it. The reason I'm not a fan of this is I find Android Studio's file manager to be really not user-friendly. I'm not a fan of this at all. So I try to avoid it where I can. So take, there we go, found the file, same thing, density, no density, and then import. So now that we have these, we can refer to them in Java code. So for the getting started app, I'll delete number 5, and layout files are in r.layout, IDs in our layout files are under r.id, and drawables, this is the first time we've done this in code, they're under r.drawable. So autocomplete and then dot, and then all of those file names you can see we have access to now. So the getting started app is first, and that is of type int, believe it or not. If I do the next one, the Vim quote app, so r.drawable.quote, if you look there, where it says quote, you can see on the right, the type of this thing is of type int. In fact, it's the number 700004. We don't need to worry about this. We don't care about the way that Android Studio, under the hood, takes things that are in our res folder and numbers them. It's just good to know that it is fundamentally an int number. So we'll change that for the word quote, and I'll just go ahead and now change all of these over. So we have r.drawable.calculator, then the inch is converted for me, so r.drawable.the tape was the picture name that I called it, and then the hungry developer, so r.drawable.hungrydeveloper. Okay, so that is done. We have imported the 5 pictures that we're going to use, and we've put them as properties, as fields in our project objects for each one. So we're now ready to pass this to our recycler view. It's time for our next programming concept, inheritance. I've made a new Scratch file, and I've renamed it inheritance. If you can go ahead and do the same, you know how to do this by now. I'm also leaving my main activity.java open, as during this concept, talking about inheritance, I'll be referring to some of the things in main activity. I've also closed down my project pane just so I've got the full width to work. It's built, and this and extends animal. Okay? And if this works, if the dog does indeed have all of the behavior and all the things that an animal knows about itself, then we should just have the same properties. So let's try it. My dog.name, there it is. Fido. My dog.type equals a dog, of course. They have made or anything. So let's have a specific one. My dog.bark and make this slash method to dogs. So we can go back to the main method where we're testing this all out, and I can comment out this line. I'll put these lines back in actually. I'll uncomment them by selecting. So we are setting these in detail. 3 bits of output for our grizzly bear, and then we should see 4 bits of output for our dog Fido. So let's run this now. And let's go through, hello, I'm the grizzly Gary, I'm the animal bear, and then sleeping, and then the dog. Hello, my name's Fido, I'm the animal dog, woof woof. The same sleeping sound, and then woof woof, look how happy I am, I'm wagging my tail, wag wag. So, we have the animal class, and then we have the dog class which inherits. If that else, I'll do system.out.println noise still, and then we'll have pour to the find specific cat's called Mac specific of values. Okay, max will do just for space s time pour to the face, feed me. And of course, if I were to change like to scratch to be true, the in your on have public class main activity extend. And the answer is it belongs to the app compat activity class activity. And this is a rather big class with loads and loads. Following immediately on from the previous programming concept on inheritance, we have the programming concept over right here. Mustang, why not? Okay, if we do next to these, so if I scroll up to our vehicle class and we look at this describe vehicle, okay, so I'm happy to have this vehicle details thing, but I'd quite like another line that gives me my specific vehicle. So click describe vehicle and then OK. So let's see what happens here. We have this describe vehicle, and if we look to the bottom, if we right click and go to generate, just like a few tutorials ago when we made a constructor using generate, we can generate a constructor, but we can also override methods. So let's click this, and if we look to the right, we have a pop-up, and it has in the vehicle class, ignore the object section, but in this vehicle section here, we have the three methods that we wrote: describe vehicle, start and stop. So we can actually override these methods, which does exactly what it sounds like, which means we the vehicles, describe a vehicle, describe couldn't be right. Fine. Let's now make another vehicle. I'm going to close the run pane down. Let's make a class plane. Fine. Let's describe the we can then describe the rover. Puts that in. It's another plane. Vehicle. About super data. If the super method is going to copy stopped. Plane start and then started. Go to it. The super inheritance. We called it. We did it in our it on Mac. So heat for us. If we delete this, things will not work properly, and in fact we're getting an error from Android Studio that we need it. We have one final programming concept to get through before we move back to our project, and that is the programming concept of 35 orders. If you look to the left, I've made a third Scratch file called inheritance3-abstract. If you can go to methods, okay, and I consider this the third and final part of our project to leave me with a full width Scratch file. So I see how that behave. It makes sense to make an instance of that class alone, like it's too generic. For example, in either of our two previous tutorials, an animal class is pretty vague. What does it mean to say this is code? And it's so nice with now. Right, actually, my then actual thing where I VI the design on let's see. Right click, generate, override methods. We actually have 6 methods we could override under this class called object. Without getting too deep on this concept now, this does relate to inheritance, so it's good to know, but we don't need to have much detail. All classes in Java fundamentally extend from this parent class, this superclass called object. Okay, so every class you could possibly write in Java, if a vertical string have a two method that we are turning. Now, if for what we can do in the string selection, we want on the rows now we can turn. Remember this, we can return just directly. Let's allow Android Studio to fix this warning for us. So I'm going to do Alt Enter or Option Enter on the Mac, I think, and then I'll do that yellow thing inline option and option. See what you see going in that string doesn't you put string line put look for that two-string method, and that's what it will log. So let's see what we get when we run this. Name Rachel, age 15. Okay, so if I just close down the run pane, you can see now how useful it is to override this two-string method. Then we can simply log or do a text output for any object, and we can totally control what that text output is. We have one final programming concept to get through, B-abstract, and how useful it can be to define a class and then have other classes extend that. To just say it's correct. Can do in our code to make the try is then have visual let's kind of anything very complicated in the future if we ever need to describe an object like this. So delete the